Morning, class. It's Professor Norwood, and I just wanted to go over a few things as far as our week three content is concerned. Your second summary response essay is due today, and I will have your third one into your assignment folder tonight, but no later than tomorrow. I still have a few more to go. All right, so we're wrapping up the summary response aspect of this class. And really, I just wanted to start off with a few of these to one, get us in the practice of reading and interpreting arguments. And another reason I like doing these in the beginning is I want us to get used to inserting our own voices into these ongoing academic discussions. So today, you'll have your third and final summary response essay, and the directions are the same as the previous ones. The only difference being for this one, you are finding your own article. So we are going to, get our feet wet a little bit just with some initial research. And, if you're a forward thinking person, perhaps you can, research what you plan on doing your final paper about. I know that's weeks from now, but it's never too early to start thinking about those things. Start thinking about what you want to write about. And for this summary response essay, as you're, deciding about something you want to write about, my first suggestion to you is to ask yourself, what am I interested in? Start with something that you have an interest in, or something that you will have an actual stake in writing about, or something you care about. All right, I think that um writing is never easy, but I think when you're writing about something that you're actually invested in, it makes the process that much easier, even though it's never easy, like I just said. So um I will go over some basics of using our library because that's where I prefer that your article comes from. But even if you don't get it from our library, the OCC library, just make sure you're using a credible source. Okay. And really that's all I'm gonna say about that right now because I just want to see what I get, for this assignment. So do your best, to make sure your material comes from a credible source. All right. Newspaper articles are fine. Magazine articles are fine. Academic journals are fine, of course. But yes, settle on something that you're interested in, for this week. Resist the urge to use Google. And if you do use Google, use Google Scholar. All right, that'll make your life a lot easier. All right. So learning guide, weekly readings, you can go through that on your own. This just, it entails the readings for this week. And there's another discussion question here, that we are to respond to. And this week's reading was primarily focused on, adding your voice, to an ongoing academic discussion, which is pretty much going to be our charge this semester. So again, it just gives you strategies of responding. Agree, disagree, or sometimes you can be divided. You can agree with parts of an argument, whereas you disagree with other parts of it. You can agree in theory, but you may just question, some of the evidence. All that is fine. And hopefully what we're gathering, in this early part of the class is that, arguments are nuanced, meaning it's maybe our instinct, to say, well, this is good, this is bad. But I think this class, our job is to go beyond this is good or bad, or even agree or disagree, right? Our textbook tells us we can agree or disagree, or, fall somewhere in the middle, but we always have to follow it up with some rationale, some explanation, some reason. All right. So even if you agree, disagree, somewhere in between, that's fine, but justify it. Okay. Really, and that, from a mechanics standpoint, that goes back to paragraph development. All right, or developing an idea, answering that question. What does my reader need to know in order to understand my point? Or what does my reader need to know in order to accept my views as valid? All right. So here's our discussion question for this week. Freedom of speech is one of Americans' most cherished and controversial rights. Whether we choose to accept it, for better or worse, our words do indeed have the power to affect our emotions, thoughts, and actions. Freedom of the press, challenges to authority, hate speech, and much more are protected by the First Amendment. And some argue that these protections have gone too far, while others argue that they don't go far enough. Now it's time for you to add your voice to this discussion. Using the strategies from chapter 4 of They Say, I Say, respond to the following claim. There should be limitations on freedom of speech in the United States. Now, just a caveat, that's not necessarily my view. It's just something to get this conversation started. As stated in this week's reading, you may agree, disagree, or both, but you must provide an explanation. Okay. Don't make some reductive post where you oversimplify, this issue. All right. Remember, it is not enough to state your position in your post. Justify your ideas with sound reasons and examples to illustrate the validity of your claim or claims. So yeah, agree, disagree, but provide your rationale. Be careful not to oversimplify this argument. Clearly it's been something that's been in the American conscience for years. So it's not something that can be broken down to a simplistic view. So when you're giving your rationale, keep in mind that this is a complex issue, and you're going to have to give some rationale to justify whatever claim you make. Okay, use some examples, right? Use your prior knowledge. You can even bring in your own experiences. You can do some research for this, but for the most part, I want to hear where you stand on this thing. All right. And then finally, here is our assignment for the week, or our second assignment, in addition to our discussion question. And again, it's a summary response essay. But as I said in the beginning, the only difference with this one is you're choosing the source material. And try to choose an article with some substance, that's at least 3 pages, and that'll give you something to write about. But first you're going to summarize it, and then you're going to respond to the ideas, the same thing we've been doing for the past couple weeks. All right. So do your best with that, folks. Do your best with that. Okay, I've been reading some good things in the ones that I've looked at so far, and there's some coaching needed, of course, but I think we're moving in the right direction so far. All right. And as far as the content for this week, this infographic, it's actually a very short summation of chapter 4 in They Say, I Say. But I do encourage you to just read the chapter and get those details. Chapter 5 as well, but I think this chapter 4 is kind of what I wanted to focus on right now for this reading. All right, or for this week, excuse me. So I'm just going to click on this. It's a PDF. All right, let me make sure I'm sharing the right thing here. Okay, so it's a PDF. Just click on it. All right, and with all the materials, you can either look at it here or you can download it to your computer, as I'm about to do right now. I'm just going to download it. All right. So now, my good people, okay, responding to arguments. And again, this is based on chapter 4 from our textbook, and it's really about when you're doing your research, or when you read any position, in academic context, you're often going to be asked to respond. All right. And a lot of times you're going to be asked to summarize and respond, because that ensures that you've understood the author's point of view in your summary, but your response, requires you to articulate your own point of view, or at least your response to some of the ideas in the article or in whatever you're reading. And our book, pretty much says that there's only 3 ways to respond. We can agree, we can disagree, or both. Or as our book puts it, we can be of two minds about an issue. And, that's perfectly fine. As I just stated, most of the arguments that, we're going to have to grapple with inside and outside of academic contexts, tend to be pretty complex. All right. And, sometimes we use the fallacy of creating these false dichotomies where it's either this or that, or either or. But arguments are rarely black and white. All right, we sometimes we get sold that arguments are black and white, or there's a clear cut, either you're this or you're that. But a lot of times there's a gray area of arguments, and it's fine for us to find our place in that gray area. But again, we have to do our best to explain our position, explain our rationale. And again, just how we, when we think critically, we have to anticipate our audience is going to be thinking critically as well, right? So we again just have to get in the practice of, okay, I agree with this, but the follow-up question is going to be, okay, but why? Explain that, right? On what grounds do you agree? Or on what grounds do you disagree? Oh, you agree with some of it, explain. All right. So again, our textbook, three ways to respond: agree, disagree, or both. Right. So after reading an argument, okay, find your article, right? Summarize it, or even before you summarize it, go through that thing. Even if you want, and this is always in your best interest in reading anything, annotate. Take some notes on that thing. Get your ideas together. You all can't see me, but I'm kind of surrounded by sticky notes. All right. And I have notes, digital notes in my textbook, because, annotation is a tried and true strategy. Helps you retain information. And it also helps you organize your thoughts. And I think for responding to a piece, annotation is great, because when you annotate, you're putting a note right next to, the point you had the point you had a thought about. So annotation is really a great asset, for putting an essay together or getting a response together. All right. So after reading an argument, assess whether you agree, disagree, or both. Really spend some time thinking about it. It's sometimes it may be our first instinct to react, but it's our jobs to kind of step back and say, okay, I got past my initial gut reaction, but now what do I really think about this? And sometimes that aligns with your gut reaction, but oftentimes you have your initial response, and then after you think about it, your position could change. All right. Think about your position and state it as clearly as possible. That's one thing that we should get in the practice of doing. Wherever we stand on any issue, state it clearly. State it clearly. And imagine this as your thesis statement. All right. And again, there should be no question about where you stand once you've included your thesis statement into a particular piece of writing, or an oral presentation. No, there should be no question about where you stand. It's the same thing as your instructor. When I'm reading your paper, one that calls for a thesis statement, after I get through that first paragraph, I should know exactly what you're arguing in an essay. And again, I think I've said this before, but it's always good to try to get your thesis statement worked out ahead of time. All right. Stated as clearly as possible. I agree or disagree that college education should be free in the United States. Okay. That's clear, whether you agree or disagree, right? Of course, you're going to remove one of those. I agree that college education should be free in the United States. Clear. Okay. Clear. Or you disagree. That's fine. Or, I am of two minds about free college education in the US. And, all of these, whether you agree, disagree, you're of two minds, you agree with parts of the argument, you agree in theory, but maybe not in practice. All of that, all of that is going to require an explanation. Okay. Oh, you agree with free education? Fine. Show me how it's going to work. Right. Or better yet, show me how that's better than our current system. What are the benefits of offering free college education? And it's the same thing. Oh, you think we should continue paying for college? What's your rationale behind that? Give me some reasoning. All right. And then if you're of two minds, or, if you're, and being of two minds doesn't necessarily mean that you're undecided. It just means that, you see the validity of both, perspectives, or, however many perspectives are involved, in an argument. But again, just be mindful that, whatever your position is, you have to give some rationale for it. All right. Your audience is not just going to accept it. In fact, they're going to be demanding more from you, as a writer. All right. So here, our book, begins with um disagreement, right? You can disagree. And I come from the school of thought where, I was taught by my educators, and, by my mentors to, question everything. In fact, one of my favorite teachers would say, well, don't believe me, go look it up. Go look it up yourself. All right. So what I'm saying is, you're free to disagree with, whatever doesn't sit right with you. All right. Maybe it's different according to your own experiences. Maybe it's different, according to research that you have done. But I just encourage you to, again, provide a rationale, right? Especially if you agree with some researched position. You can't just say, well, I disagree because, what happened to me is different. Okay. I don't agree that people should have to wear seatbelts because, I've been in plenty of accidents without a seatbelt, and I'm just fine. All right. You can't, well, you can, but it's not gonna work out in your favor. You can't, I just said it again. Try not to disagree with research positions based on your own experiences. Okay. You can start with your own experience, but you have to conduct your own research to make sure that your experiences are not the exception to the rule. All right. So again, if we go back and do the research, we'll find that, me not wearing my seatbelt and getting into accidents and being okay, that's pretty rare in comparison to, people who have sustained injuries or even died from, not wearing their seatbelts and, being in accidents. So provide your reasoning when you disagree, with the position, right? Provide your reasoning. All right. So it is not enough to merely agree or disagree. You must provide valid reasons to justify your position. While free college sounds like a great idea in theory, the money has to come from somewhere. Free college would inevitably increase taxes. Okay. And then, if you were fleshing this idea out, you could explain how that will work. All right. Or you could explain how, higher taxes would actually be counterproductive, in this argument. All right. So think about that, right? While free college sounds like a great idea in theory, the money has to come from somewhere. Free college would inevitably increase taxes. Okay. Now, right? It's the same thing, if you agree, right? Now, if you agree with the position, you have to do more than reiterate that claim, right? Try to add something new to that discussion. Okay, if you can, right? Maybe there's some new research, some new study. That's the great thing about being in the information age. There's always some new data, being released. Maybe there's a reason that, the author didn't mention, in the piece that you're reading. So when you agree with something, it's fine, but be careful not to fall into the trap of, just simply restating an author's ideas. All right. What can you add, to that discussion? Again, because that's our jobs here to, add our voices. And I think if we can bring something new to that discussion, it really strengthens, our position. All right. It's kind of, you want your reader to kind of have those aha moments, or you want them to say, well, I didn't think of that. Great point. All right. So you can agree with something, just don't fall into the trap of, just repeating, what the author has said. All right. So agree, but don't repeat. Even if you agree with an argument, you will need to provide reasons that don't, just simply restate what an author said. It's not enough to simply reiterate an author's claim when we agree. Try adding something new to the argument. Okay. Try adding something new. And now, There's that old saying, there's nothing new under the sun, but still, you can argue a point. It's just that we may have heard this point before, but we haven't heard it from you, right? Maybe you can add something new. All right, add your own, specific nuance to this piece. All right. The author is right in arguing that free college can provide more opportunities for underserved communities. Another reason college should be free is less student loan debt can boost the economy, right? So add your voice, add your perspective, right? Or, add your research, if we're, doing something that involves research, or even if you want to take that initiative to do your own research, right, for this assignment. So disagree or agree, but provide your reasoning. Okay, that's critical. And I think from just a practical standpoint, if we're putting an essay together, that helps us, develop our paragraphs. Okay, show me how, decreased student loan debt can boost the economy, right? Well, people have more disposable income, and that creates a scenario for more upward mobility, right? Or if you don't have student loan debt, you may not have taken certain hits to your credit, so then, when you want to buy a house, you can, or when you want to make whatever, economic move you have in mind, you can do that. So that would be a good way to develop that paragraph. So, you know, just follow your logic, follow your reasoning. Okay. And keep explaining yourself. And then it's what I said in the beginning. When you think about paragraph development, think about answering the question, what does my reader need to know? Okay. What does my reader need to know? And that's how we achieve adequate development, of a paragraph. Now, you can agree and disagree. Okay. Now, agreeing and disagreeing may seem like a cop out. And if it's done a certain way, it is. All right. Because you can agree and disagree and still articulate your position. All right. It just means that you have questions about a particular argument. All right. And don't look at that as being an easy way out. Oftentimes it presents even more of a challenge because you have to provide rationale, to both what you agree with and what you disagree with. So, this, it still is a valid viewpoint, when we're responding, to a particular argument. So it's fine to have multiple perspectives on an argument as long as you provide sound reasoning, right? Because that shows a reader that you're not copying out. It just means that you're really trying to grapple with like the full scope of this argument, and you've looked at maybe some of the subtleties of your argument. All right, so it's fine to have multiple perspectives on an argument as long as you provide sound reasoning. I have mixed feelings on the impact that free college will have on the economy. On one hand, I agree that free college would address the student loan bubble. On the other hand, is what they should say, I still have reservations about potentially increased taxes. Okay. So I have to go back and revise my parallel structure. If I say on the one hand, then it should be on the other hand. All right. So I will go back and adjust that. All right. But the gist of what I'm saying is you provided your rationale for your agreement. Free college would address the student loan bubble. But on the other hand, you still have reservations about potentially increased taxes, meaning like you still have reservations about, who's going to pay for this. Okay. Who's going to pay for, free college tuition. Okay. And I think if we were to take this further, we can look at precedent, right? What other countries or where else, has free education worked? All right. So that's, chapter 4 in a nutshell. If you want to go back over that in your textbook. All right. So I want us to, work on applying these strategies to one, our discussion question, and two, definitely the response aspect of our next summary response essay. And before, I end this call or this this Zoom meeting. I just want to quickly go over how to find an article using our OCC library. Okay. And, on the surface, it may look complicated, but it's not really, especially once you get in the practice of doing it. My advice also is to really just familiarize yourself with the library. We have like on-call librarians. If you have a question about your research, there you can enter into the chat, and they're usually good about responding to you quickly. And I want to say the chat function is 24/7. All right, so I'm just going to show you how to access our library first off. All right, I'm just going to start from OCC's homepage, and then I'm going to go up into quick links and find the library. All right. And now I'm just going, there's a lot of ways you can access the research, but oh, here we go. This is what I was thinking about before, ask a librarian. So if you click on that, okay, you enter this information, enter your question, and you can start the chat. And as you can see, this is actually available 24/7. And I would imagine that it's even more amped up now since we're remote. So, if you do have questions, I don't claim to be an expert on the library, but I do know research. But if you want to consult or you want to confer with an expert on the library, enter into this chat, and a librarian will be there to assist. All right, let me go back here. All right. I just go to find articles slash databases, and I'm only going to look at one of these or a couple of these databases for this assignment because they kind of these databases are, in my opinion, they're a great fit for what we're about to do. So you can just go and find articles and databases, and I'm just going to go over here to points of view. Really, these are the two that will be great. And as you can see over here, there's a ton of databases. So you have our free press here. So as I was saying before, you can certainly use, you know, newspapers and magazines. The great thing about academic libraries is a lot of times when you go to a website like a CNN or a New York Times or whatever, Detroit News or wherever you get your news from, um, there's sometimes you hit a paywall, right? Where you only get, a certain amount of articles, or it'll show you parts of the article, and then you have to pay you have to get a subscription. Academic libraries can help you bypass that. So, that's one great aspect of using academic libraries. And I'm just going to go back up. Points of view and opposing views. These are great because these tend to be pretty objective, meaning you click on it. I'm just going to go points of view. All right, it's going to make you log in again, maybe. All right. Just going to wait patiently and keep waiting. I'm going to impatiently hit log in again. It worked. Sometimes impatience pays off. All right. No, it doesn't. Patience is a virtue. All right. So I like this one because, I think there's something to address most interests. All right. So what you can do, oh, I'm just going to click on this one, conspiracy theories. I've never clicked on this, so we're both doing this for the first time. All right. But when you click on this, whatever your topic is, all right, one gives you an overview. All right. Gives you just an overview, doesn't really take a position either way. But if you go over here, all right, then you can look at, the source or what kind of source you want to read. All right, magazines, newspaper, books, etc. And I think for this assignment, we can just stick with magazines, newspapers, and academic journals. All right, so you click on one of these things. Okay, just explore. Find one that speaks to you. Okay. Again, yours doesn't have to be on conspiracy theories. I just clicked on that because it just caught my eye. Okay. So that's excuse me, points of view, and I'll show you opposing viewpoints. Opposing view, it's pretty much the same thing where it just gives you an overview. of whatever topic you choose, and then you click on it. All right. I'm just gonna go, all right, browse issues. Again, it just gives you, an overview. I'm just gonna click on anything, Flint water crisis, which is still happening, by the way. All right. But again, same deal, right? Journals, news, magazines, videos. Okay. Then there's some audio stuff. But yeah, you can go down here and explore. All right. But for this assignment, like I was saying, I do encourage you to use, an academic source for, whatever your interest is. Okay. And that's all I have today. All right. Oh, there's a few inquisitive assignments that I will add to our D2L. I'm about to make an announcement on D2L right now. So that's all I got today. I'm available by email, if you have any questions, but that's it. Take care, my good people.